I wanted to jump on and have an opportunity to talk about your former head coach, Bill Belichick, who after 24 unbelievable years is finally on the outs in New England. It's funny hearing from like local guys that actually he still kind of wanted to stay there and try and fix the job and get his final 15 wins there and all of that stuff. But he has moved on. And so, just from your perspective, I'll ask you a few bits about your history, but what was your initial reaction to the news and seeing all of like the stuff come out about everyone come out of the woodworks and just talk about Belichick?
Yeah, definitely mixed emotions, right? Because you're sad that it's the end of one of the greatest eras in all of sports. You're sad because I wanted to see him go out on top. At the end, but at the same time, I choose to think about the positives. I choose to think about what he has done, what he did for me, how much I learned from Coach Belichick, how he was able to prepare us. There's not a better mind in the sport of football. And I don't know everybody that's coached, but I would be shocked if there was a coach that had a better, smarter, more intellectual mind in the game of football than Bill Belichick. That's just what he has brought to the sport. That's what he brought to the fans and the players of New England. And there's a reason why there's been such an outpour of congratulations, such an outpour of support, such an outpour of gratitude and thanks, is because he meant the world to everybody that put on a uniform for him.
From your perspective as a guy played on the offense, I think there's been like for me as a guy looking from the outside, maybe a little bit of a rewrite over the last few years about
Mm.
how he's still this brilliant defensive mind, which he is. And like that defense has still been really good the last few years, despite injuries and a lack of talent. But from your time there, what were your experiences of his interactions with the offensive side of the ball? Obviously, with Tom and yourself there, but like
Yeah.
you said about the great football mind, this idea that he's just a guy who's a brilliant defensive mind kind of strikes me as being maybe a little bit disingenuous.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he knows his first position coach job in the NFL was special teams with the Cleveland Browns. He was a special teams coordinator. Obviously a defensive background, and eventually got to the defensive side of the ball. Was a D coordinator for the New York Giants, won 2 Super Bowls there, and then became a head coach again. So the offensive side, he would he would surprise me because I would think that I always knew that he had a hand in the offensive plan each week, um, a plan for practice, a plan for what he wanted the offense to get better at week in and week out. But what always surprised me is we would run a play in practice, good or bad. I would be jogging back to the huddle, and he would call me over for a couple of seconds, and he would literally break down if I was running a route. He would break down, hey, instead of breaking off your route this way, climb 2 more yards, shake him outside, and then break him inside. Like he would be able to break down the little intricacies of the offensive game, instead of just the big picture stuff. He had the big picture in mind, and he could say, "Hey, you have to sit here because there's a route coming behind you." But the little small things, the little intricacies of each position. Keep your hands high, keep your hands up, because if you have to punch, if you have to rip, like those little things, he knew as well. And I always thought that that was the most impressive thing about it. It's like, you're not in the meetings with us every single day, yet every time you call me over after a play, it's something that I wasn't really thinking about and something that's definitely going to help me to get better.
What are your earliest memories of when he the pre-draft process when he calls you to draft you, and then those first few days in the facilities as a rookie? Like from the outside in, he looks like a tough nut to crack. Was that your experience as well?
Absolutely, and a fearful nut to crack as well. I learned pretty quick. Your rookie year, you to be seen and not heard. Um, One thing I always respected about him is that regardless if we were a rookie or a 10th year, you had to earn playing time. You had to earn your spot. Nothing was given. Everything was earned, and I respected that. He expected greatness. He expected exceptional play and execution, not just on Sundays, but on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays. He expected you to walk into the building, A, being ready to go, and B, playing your best, or at least increasing and getting better day in and day out. That's what he expected. And because that's what he expected, I then expected that of myself. So it was not just coaching, it was also the expectation and the quote unquote Patriot way that I think led to so much success for his teams.
You ever remember getting like a really like a proper pat on the back, like a proper well done at some point? Because I don't know,
Yeah.
in my mind, it's like you catch 11 passes in the Super Bowl and you probably get a good job. But you put in throw some incredible block on a special teams play and suddenly he's giving you 4 minutes in a meeting. Like that's how it works in
Yeah.
my mind. I don't know if I'm just
Yeah.
imagining that, but yeah, do you
Yeah.
remember a specific time he did give you a little bit of love?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say the first time, one of the first times, was in a divisional playoff game, my second year. So it was 2012, and we played at home against the Texans. And it was kind of like my breakout performance, really my best game up until that point in my NFL career. And I had 3 touchdowns in that game, and I ran well, and I caught the ball well. Our Danny Woodhead, who was ahead of me, got hurt on he broke his thumb the very first play of the game. And so I was in for the rest of the game, for a majority of it anyways. And like I said, I had 3 touchdowns. I played really, really well. And after the game, we're in the locker room and he's doing his speech to the team. And at the end of the end, he was like, okay, break it down. He was like, wait, hold on. Shane Vereen, great game. And then and then we broke it down, and I was like, "Oh, my heart's so warm, Coach. Thank you."
There's something special about getting the pat on the back from the guy that doesn't give them. Like that is the thing
Yeah,
that it does really warm the cockles. Two things kind of we've talked a lot in the past about Brady, and obviously he was the first one to go, so it's not surprising that we did. But it's been really interesting hearing those same conversations come back around over recent days, right? From my perspective, I look at it as those symbiotic relationships where and there are other incredibly famous examples. Montana and Walsh is probably the most obvious one to jump out, but I still believe that Brady isn't Brady without Belichick and vice versa, right? They
yeah.
probably both have multiple Super Bowls, but do they have 6/7? Maybe not. Like that's
Mhm.
that's kind of where it sits for me. Over the 3 or 4 years you were there, how did you see that relationship between those two men?
I saw it through very similar eyes as to what you just explained. I think it took two. I think it took both of them. I'm not saying that they were friendly each and every day, but there was a extremely high level of respect. They didn't always agree, but there was a very deep rooted level of respect and understanding that we're not always going to see eye to eye, but we're going to do everything in our power to win a Super Bowl. We're going to do everything in our power to win as many games as possible. And I think that they both understood that. And I think they both kind of wore it as like a badge of honor. It's like I can talk to you, I can coach you just like I coach everybody else. And Tom took it as I'm going to be coached just like everybody else, whether I like it or not. I'm Tom Brady. Like you shouldn't be able to talk to me like this. But it was for the bigger reason, the bigger purpose of everybody's getting coached and everybody's part of this team. There's no one person that's more special or more important than the other. Obviously, it's Tom Brady. Like we know he's special, right? But the fact that we didn't like that Bill and Tom did such a good job of not approaching it always in that manner. It was humbling and it allowed, I think, everybody else to kind of fall in and buy in. If Brady's buying in, then why am I not buying in? Kind of that kind of sense.
I did want to ask about one moment in his career, and I think it's probably the one time. I mean, I'm sure I've watched and questioned Belichick decisions plenty over the years. But I remember, 49 was my first Super Bowl being there in person and covering it. And after that, the helmet catch that led to obviously eventually Malcolm Butler's interception on the 1 yard line. The decision by Bill Belichick not to take a timeout there, not to think to himself, if they score, I want to make sure Tom's got 45, 50 seconds to go and do the same down the other end. I remember almost like you're in the press box meant to be as professional as possible. I'm like, Was he not taking a time out here? Like, you've got to be playing that. Did you ever
Yeah.
have a moment like that? Maybe it was that moment where you would question it and then feel later like, he probably did the right thing there, didn't he?
A little bit. I'll tell you this story. So that week leading up to Super Bowl 49, it must have been Thursday. Thursday meetings, we would go over red zone and third down. And he said, and he was talking to the defense, but the whole team was in there. For some reason, I was paying attention when he was talking to the defense this particular morning. And he said, for some reason, he goes, I've looked at the tape for the last 2 seasons, and for some reason, this offensive coordinator on second down inside the 5 yard line wants to throw the football. He goes, I don't understand why. It doesn't matter if they're on the 4 or the 1. He wants to throw the football on second down inside the 5 yard line. And I remembered that like it was yesterday, because I'm like, oh, that's pretty strange. You got Marshawn Lynch, like, whatever. Like, I just brushed in one ear out the other ear, but I kind of hung on to that. And lo and freaking behold, it was second down and 1 from the 1 yard line for the Super Bowl, and they throw a pass. Malcolm Butler intercepts it, and that's ball game.
And
I,
it's
I
it's that
mean,
it's that thing of he's seen that tendency and he's gone, I could take the time out, I could make sure we've got time on the clock, or I could put that pressure on them.
yeah.
I could force them to throw the ball, and if they do, we've got the play dialed up. And okay, you don't know Malcolm Butler's going to make the play of any player's lifetime, let alone his. But even so, that is still to me one of those moments where I go, oh right, yeah, I get it now. And then the Rams Super
Yeah.
Bowl, like 2 years later, we're like, oh, I've just watched the best defensive masterclass I've ever seen against the guy who's meant to have reinvented offense, supposedly. So I've been
Yeah.
fortunate to see a couple of those coaching performances in person, and it is pretty special, I have to say.
I know it's special, and I can't tell you how many times he would tell us something in the meetings 3 or 4 days before the game, and we're in that same exact situation, the same thing he showed us on tape that he talked us through. It has come to the game on Sundays. I cannot. It's probably 80% of the games that I played in 4 years. Something we talked about at a very important time in the game actually happened on game day. And it was just, it's a testament to his preparation, a testament to his to just the way he looked at the game and how well he understands the game of football.
I still maintain there was a thing that we talked about a lot, and this happened a lot around the Atlanta Super Bowl, actually. And then we all felt very smug when they were 28-3 down, having said this all week, and we all know what happened. But I always think to myself that 2 weeks for a Super Bowl, people would say like, "Oh, giving Bill Belichick 2 weeks to prepare, how can you ever beat that?" But I'm like, no, no, no. Giving anyone else 2 weeks to prepare is like giving Bill a normal week to prepare. Actually, if anything, it helps level the playing field a bit because for once everyone else can catch up. Like that's how I kind of felt about it.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good way of putting it. I would definitely agree with it, because I will say this in terms of preparation. Um, I don't care what the score was, I don't care how much time was left in the game. I never once stepped on the football field and thought, well, we're not going to win this game. Every single time, regardless of the score, regardless of how much time was on the clock, I would look up and say, I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to win this game. We're going to find a way to win this game. Just watch. I would tell myself that every time.
I saw something absolutely astonishing, and obviously it's partly down to Brady's injury in the one season, but there was a stat when Brady left New England that during the Brady Belichick era, there was never a time where Tom was on the field that they were mathematically out of the playoffs. When you think about like that, the length of time he was there, like there was never a meaningless week 17 game. There was always something on the line. And I'm just like, to have that consistency for that long is just ludicrous. Just
Yeah, and
absolutely ridiculous.
it absolutely is. I don't know if we'll ever see that type of a run from a head coach to quarterback ever again. And so that's why I'm just happy and grateful that I was, a small part of it. Just to say that I was a part of it is special enough for me.